What's going on, guys? Billy here, and real estate photography is something that I've really pushed into over the past 2 to 3 years. From interior and exterior photos, to drone photos, to high-end marketing style videos, to full walkthrough videos of properties. This is what I've been sinking most of my time into outside of YouTube and is what primarily keeps the lights on. With that said, something that has played a massive role in growing my business is aerial photography. I mean, using drones to showcase properties is by far one of the greatest use cases for these aerial platforms. I pretty much fly my drone on at least one property per day if it's right for aerial photos, which means that I'm able to charge more and make more money. It can also be a lot easier to fly the drone around to get your exterior photos than walk around a big yard. I always tell people that a drone is a lazy photographer's best friend. So what I want to do in today's video is give you the beginning steps on how to capture better aerial photographs on your real estate shoots. I actually just finished up a full photography course with Pilot Institute, so you can check the link in the description to check out that course where we cover everything from the basics of how a camera works all the way to more niche topics like real estate photography and real estate videography. Okay, so first things first, we need to determine if the property can benefit from using aerial photographs. And this is pretty self-explanatory. If those aerial photos are going to show the property in a different way where it can help it sell, then using a drone is probably a good idea. To give you some examples, aerial photography on beachfront properties are a must. If the home sits on a big plot of land, then aerial photos will also definitely help to show how much acreage is being sold. If there's a pool or a cool feature in the backyard, then the drone can also show those off very well. And showing location is also made really easy through photos taken from a higher elevation. For example, you would think that drone photos taken in a city setting wouldn't accomplish much, especially with the tiny row homes that we have here in Philly that I shoot on the daily. But using the drone is a great way to show proximity, in this case to downtown, to sports stadiums, schools, nearby restaurants. It's also great for showing off amenities at condo buildings like rooftop decks, pools, and the view you get from those spaces. Now, when I first got into doing real estate photography, I was under the impression that every home that I photographed should get aerial photos. I mean, why not, right? You're going to show the home in a different way and it's going to help the home sell. But I quickly realized that for all of those properties that are right for aerial photographs, from homes that have, a cool pool in the backyard, that sit on a lot of land, that might have a great location, there's also going to be a handful of properties that just aren't right for aerial photographs. So to give you a couple examples, you might run into a home that sits in the woods, it's heavily wooded, and you might not want to shoot photos with your drone because you're just going to be looking at the tops of trees and it's not going to help sell the property. You might also run into a house that's in a heavily congested area in a really tight neighborhood. It doesn't matter if the home is small or big and spectacular, they might have a small yard and the real estate agent or your client doesn't want to show off how small that yard is. So again, a drone photo might take away from that home and what it offers. You might also run into some very special circumstances where the home is perfect for aerial photos. It's got a great pool, a big backyard, it's a nice big home, but there's a power plant across the street and taking drone photos is going to show that power plant. So in that case, you might totally nix the drone photos and you wouldn't do them at all, or you might just shoot the property in a way that doesn't show that power plant. So there's a lot of ways you can go about it. There's going to be a lot of different properties out there, and at the end of the day, it's up to you as the photographer to determine whether or not drone photos are going to help sell the listing or not. Now, moving on here, let's talk about gear, because I know that everyone is going to be wondering what the best drone is to capture these aerial photographs, and really, you can't go wrong with most of the options on the market. Now, having a YouTube channel that is dedicated to reviewing drones and showing people how to fly them better and take better photos and videos with them, I've amassed quite the collection over the years, and most of the drones that I've reviewed on my channel have actually been used in some paid shoots when I was doing that initial review process. I've got drones that are 5 years old. I've got drones that are 6 months old. I've got drones that are small, drones that are big. I've got drones that are inexpensive and drones that are very expensive. But at the end of the day, all of them are going to get the job done. So if you're getting started in real estate photography and you want to add aerial photos to your offerings, then just know that most of the drones that have come out over the past 4 to 5 years are going to be sufficient for getting you started. I mean, I've got the Mavic Pro here that came out, like 5 years ago, and this would be a great real estate photography drone. With that said, my 3 go-to drones right now are DJI's Mavic 3 Cine, Air 2S, and their Mini 3 Pro. The reason that I use these drones are for the features that make them easier to fly. They have great flight time, they have great range, they can handle the wind really well, and of course, they take beautiful photos. All of this makes my daily job easier, so it's worth the investment. But if you're a photographer that is looking to add aerial photos to your offerings for the first time, you could go with something more affordable like the Mini SE or the Mini 2 from DJI and still get great results. I'll quickly show a carousel of images that I've taken from the Air in my previous real estate shoots, with most of them being captured with either the Mavic Air 2, the Air 2S, or the Mavic 3. And while I don't remember exactly which drone I used to take each of these images, that is kind of the point. They all look great with good dynamic range and awesome colors. It's easy to get caught up on buying the best gear, but as far as a drone is concerned, just getting one that is relatively newer is going to do you just fine. You also have to realize that these images are being downsampled when agents feed them into the MLS system so that they can be distributed across the internet. So delivering a super high resolution 40 megapixel image from, say, a Mavic Air 2 is just going to get crushed by compression. Okay, so now that we've discussed some of the preliminary things that you need to understand, we've determined if the property is right for these aerial photographs, and we've got a drone that we're actually going to take the photos with. It's now time to jump into the process, right? The nitty-gritty of actually capturing these photographs, and it all starts with the setup, getting the property ready. I've made a quick checklist here that I don't actually carry around with me and check off, but they're just things that go through my mind as I'm trying to capture these aerial photos to show the property in the best way possible. So I first want to make sure that all people are inside. They're not wandering around to the outside of the home. You wouldn't want to just have the homeowner standing in the middle of the lawn. So make sure all people are inside. You want to pull the cars out of the driveway so that they're not taking up that driveway space, potentially blocking the home. Sometimes it can make the outside of the home look a little bit junky. You want to make sure that the trash cans are tucked away or they're inside of like the garage if you can get them in there. And that also goes for maybe some like kids' toys outside. You might want to try to put them, say, inside of the garage if you can. You also want to put the patio cushions in place and put those umbrellas up in the back of the home in the backyard. And then if applicable, you're going to want to remove the pool cleaner from the inside of the pool, and you also want to open up the hot tub. Now, those are all the things that I kind of keep in mind as I'm walking around getting a property ready. But when we're talking about drones specifically, you want to make sure that you've got good airspace and that you've got clearance to fly in the airspace if you need it. And you also want to make sure that you scan the area for obstructions. The last thing you want to do is show up to a home, shoot it, get paid, and crash your drone. That is definitely a bad feeling. So I think a lot of these things are probably stuff that already goes through your mind when you're prepping the outside for, say, regular exterior photos taken from the ground. But again, all of those things are applicable when flying a drone. Now, I've shown a lot of photos that I've taken of properties here in this video, and even though a lot of them seem random in a sense, there's actually a cookie cutter formula that I follow for each home to get the best shots. Now, granted, every home is a little bit different. You might encounter different layouts. You might encounter a home that has trees in specific areas that don't allow you to take specific photos, but the general rule of thumb is to get good coverage of the property from different angles and different elevations so that you can show it off from the air in the best way possible. That's pretty much the thing I've been hammering home this entire video. So I've actually made a diagram here, and this diagram is like, if I could photograph a property, it would be the exact way I do it each and every single time if I was, say, on a nice open plot of land with no trees in the way. But of course, that isn't what we get every single time. So just to kind of run through here quickly, my first shot is always level with the home, so it's straight on. And then my second shot is that same angle, so I'm level with the home, but I just moved to the side. And for that side shot, I like to try and go on the side that is opposite the bump out. So certain homes will have a bump out where there's like a garage or maybe a living room space. So I try to go opposite side of that bump out. Moving on from there, I then do another straight on shot, but from a higher elevation, and then move to the other side to do that same angle from that higher elevation, again, on the opposite side of the bump out. Now, moving on from there, I'll try to do the whole entire property straight on from a higher elevation, and then again, move to an angle and get that whole property from the angle. Now, I actually like to kind of go on the opposite side of the bump out for that, or on the opposite side of taking those lower level angled photos, just to kind of mix up the photos that I'm delivering. I then, once I'm done with the front of the property, move and fly over the roof and shoot the backyard from the top of the roof to kind of just get a sense of like what the homeowner will look at when they step outside of that back door. When they enter the backyard, what are they going to look at? I then go and move on the backside and duplicate the same photos I've taken on the front and the back. So I do one that's level, that's straight on with the home, and then I move to the side and take one from an angle that is again level with the house. Then I'll move to a higher elevation that's straight on, and then a higher elevation on the angle. You kind of see it's a little bit of a flow here. And then I'll move and shoot the yard from an angle, so the backyard from an angle, kind of just even with the house, but from a lower elevation, to again give that person an understanding that might be seeing the house, what they're going to see in their backyard. Now, kind of moving on from the diagram, I've also got a couple of other extra shots that you can take, just kind of throw in there if you wanted to. So I usually like to do a top down of the whole property that shows all of the different property boundaries if you can. I also then like to fly a little bit lower and do a top down of just the backyard. I'll then do some proximity shots, so I'll actually fly up really high and show the home down low. I try to put it in the lower thirds in one of the corners. I like to do 2 of those. Maybe I'll do a little bit more if it's in a really special area, but those proximity shots are definitely nice. And then after that, I like to do any extra photos that the property might warrant. If it's near a lake, I'll do some photos of just the lake. If it's, say, in the city, I'll do some photos of just the skyline. So again, after going and taking those photos, you're going to use your judgment and take some other photos that are specific to the property that you're photographing. Now, in the world of photography and videography, of course, the capturing process is only half of the equation and the editing process is the other half. So what I want to quickly do is go through some tips and tricks that I like to use when I'm editing my photos. I don't do anything crazy. All I like to do is just make them look nice and natural, present them in their best way possible, and don't do any wild effects so that the person that's viewing it sees it in a way that they're going to see it when they show up and look at it with their own eyes. So I use Lightroom Cloud. I use the CC version. It's just easy. I can edit between different devices. And again, I've got 3 photos here that I want to share with you. So the first one here is an estate on the main line. The next one is an estate in Westchester, and the next one is another estate in the main line. So kind of 3 similar properties, but they've all been taken, all 3 of them, in different times, different seasons. And what I want to quickly debunk, or I guess bash on, is people selling presets. I hate using presets because things look different from photo to photo. Of course, it's not going to look great right out of the gate when you add that preset, but that's how people like to sell it, right? They're like, hey, I've got this preset, use it, 1 click, your photos are going to look great. And in certain cases, it might work, but in other cases, it just doesn't. So again, I've got 3 different seasons here, 3 different photos, and in each of the seasons, I edit my photos differently because there's different lighting conditions, there's different colors, there's different things that I need to take into account. So to give you an example, I'll go to the first photo here, taken in the fall. I'll copy my settings, go to the next photo. This was taken here in the summer. This is the most recent. I'll copy them or paste them, and like the photo just looks off. Like, yeah, it looks okay. I could deliver this, but I mean, this is nice and punchy. It looks good. And when I paste the old edit, it just looks flat and dull. Obviously, I took different things into account when editing each photo, and I think that this looks better. Let's go to this next one. This was taken in the spring. I'll copy those same edits onto here, and the image just looks flat. It looks too green. It looks a little bit dull. So again, I used these edits here, and it makes it look a lot better. So let's go, let's edit this one, for example. I'll just hit Command R. We'll start from fresh here. We'll start from scratch, and I'm just gonna edit this photo and walk you through my process of what I like to do. So again, I don't really start with any presets. What I'll do is edit 1 photo, and then I'll copy that throughout the rest of the photos for that home and make slight adjustments. That's my workflow. So first, I usually do a slight exposure adjustment, slight contrast bump, and then I'll totally kill the highlights and totally increase the shadows. And that gives us kind of a good starting point here. Then I like to kind of boost up my whites a little bit and then also pull the blacks down. This gives us a little bit of a bite to the image, a little bit of contrast. I'll then go and increase my texture a little bit, increase my clarity a little bit, and increase my dehaze a little bit. So again, I mean, I'm not looking at really values. I'm not gonna say like, hey, your dehaze needs to be at 10 every time. I just kind of drag the slider and move until I kind of get to a point where I'm like, hey, that looks good. And you'll notice I'm making very finite adjustments from like 5 to 11 to see where I wanna be. And I think that this looks kind of good. Now I'll do a global saturation bump, very slight, because I wanna kind of adjust these colors on their own. But again, I'll use my saturation and bump it up just a touch so we can get some nice colors throughout. Now we're already at a pretty good starting point here. It's a little bit brighter, it's a little bit more saturated. Honestly, you could deliver this photograph and it would look fine, but there are some things that I want to tune. And the first thing that my eye always goes to is the greens. Like the greens for me need to be in a place where they don't look too neon, they don't look too washed out, because again, I mean, most of this image is the green. You don't want people attracting their image to the grass and the trees, you want them to see the home. So I initially from here go to my greens. I'll usually make them more green, so I drag the hue and make them a little bit more green green. That usually makes them look a lot better, a lot more like what I saw with my eyes. And then I'll drag my saturation down and my luminance down. So now we've got the greens to a point where it's not like super overbearing. Again, you can look kind of from front to start. We're looking pretty good here. Now I'm also going to adjust the brick color here just because I want it to pop a little bit more. So I'll go to my orange. I'll usually make it a little bit more red just because that kind of pops a little more. Nothing crazy. I mean, I'll go to like maybe -3, -4, but just a little touch of red. I'll then increase my saturation. And then when I'm kind of dragging this, I also look around the image to see what I'm affecting. So when I adjust this orange, sure, I'm adjusting the brick here, but I also don't want to be adjusting the dirt or like the fence, right? I don't want to go too overkill. So I'll drag the saturation up. It actually looks good when I'm at like +54 here. Just to kind of show you a difference, right? We definitely want that brick to pop. And then also, I'll probably make it a little bit brighter through my luminance. So I'll drag that luminance up, make it bright. And as I drag that up, I also need to add a little more saturation as it's taking away from that saturation. So there we are. That is our edit right there. And look, for real estate photography, I think that this is pretty much good. The white balance right of the camera was great. We've got a nice punchy image. This is going to do great for like a opening shot on the MLS, say if you look on Zillow or Redfin, or it's going to look great in print. I usually kind of scan the image and see if there's anything that looks a little bit off. And I think that maybe the red over here is a little bit overpowering, like this red bush. So I'll probably take my red, drag it down, and that looks pretty good. So there we are. That's how I edit my photographs. We've got a nice overcast day, so this edit was pretty easy. And then from here, if I've got other photos taken from the drone kind of in this same light, I'll copy these edits, I'll paste them throughout, and then make minor adjustments as I need to through my set of images. So guys, that pretty much wraps up our course, our little mini series on how to take better aerial photos using your drone. If you want to go and check out that course, I'm going to leave a link down in the description. It was me, it was Greg, and it was Ken going through everything you need to know about general photography all the way to the niche again of real estate photography. I'd love for you to go and check it out. If you do, let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Hopefully this video helped you out. And as always, I'll talk to you later. Peace.